Is the nature of reality natural? Well, I guess that depends on what you view as natural. As like with most things, perspective plays an immense role in perception. So, by natural, I mean almost out of your control, it seems. The natural forces of the universe are things which are beyond man's kind ability to wield them, aren't they? Well, let's take a second look at this. Because what is the real world as we know it? What is reality? Well, reality itself is the built up structure of indivisible particulates which make up the visible world in which we perceive. So there are these atomic and molecular components which, when organized in a certain manner and fashion, and vibrating and resonating at certain frequencies, give us the visible world which our brain then transmits into images which we perceive as reality. Well, what if I told you that these indivisible components can actually be and are, in a lot of ways, manufactured by top scientists today? So in a sense, those indivisible particulates, which make up our waking world, are wielded and utilized by top laboratories and facilities worldwide. Some things which were once known as taboo are now a reality today. The transmutation of one element into another is no longer seen as fiction, but as fact. I can take energy, I can bombard an element, and I can transmute this element into gold. It may not be feasible, but it can be done. The amount of energy that it takes is outweighed by the cost of gold and the amount of gold produced, making it not practical. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible and that it hasn't actually been accomplished. So what does all this mean? If reality itself is something which we play a part in, it's almost like there's a dual relationship presenting itself where there's reality and there's conditions, and we find ourselves in these conditions and we have to deal with them. Now, how we deal with these conditions and how we deal with reality will in effect create our reality tomorrow. Because it's what we do today which creates tomorrow. It's what we do in the moment which creates the future. The future is merely the set buildup of sequences which we go about to create the future in which we want. So how is it that we can create the future and reality that we desire? If we know that the material world is now something that we can mold, well, it all comes down to thought. And you might say, how can you control reality with thought? Well, I just explained to you how, utilizing extreme intellect, people were able to control the forces of nature itself. Is it really that far-fetched to think that you can control reality using your mind? Now, to make it not sound so esoteric and metaphysical, what I mean is that make a plan. A plan starts within the mind. Come up with an idea to create the world in which you want, the reality in which you wish to perceive and be a part of. Now, utilizing this idea, come up with a pathway to reach your goal, given the conditions which you find yourself presented in at this moment. As soon as you reconcile with the conditions that you're in right now, then you'll be able to better accomplish what it is that you want for the future once you know where you're at. So, know where you're at and know where you want to go, and then come up with the pathway to reach this place in space and in time. And as you do this, and as you practice it more and more and more, you'll find out that you yourself are a co-creator of reality. There are parts and times where it feels like, I definitely have no control at all over what is going on. But like I said before, perception and viewpoint plays an enormous role on the world and how the world reacts to you and what life actually really is. Because life is what you make it. So, given that statement, life is what you make it, what do you want to make life? You can make life into anything that you want. And that being said, the nature of reality is not natural, but it's man-made, and it can be made by you right now. So go get on it. Go make your world. Go make your reality. Make your dream, make your vision into your waking life. The nature of reality is not so natural as it may have seemed. So this isn't really a new concept. It's just been rearranged in recent history to give it like a new coat of paint so that it can be remarketed again to the masses, or merely serve as a reminder to those who wish to hear it once again. Here we see it in a much more scientific manner.
So the long undulating snake that is us will feel like it is moving in a straight line in the fourth dimension, but there will actually be in the fifth dimension a multitude of paths that we could branch to at any given moment. Those branches will be influenced by our own choice, chance, and the actions of others. Quantum physics tells us that the subatomic particles that make up our world are collapsed from waves of probability simply by the act of observation. In the picture we are drawing for ourselves here, we can now start to see how each of us are collapsing the indeterminate wave of probable futures contained in the fifth dimension into the fourth dimensional line that we are experiencing as time.
So here we have the most famous experiment ever done to show the interaction between observation and reality. Now, what people are misinterpreting within this whole experiment is the mere fact that it shows, in essence, that you, the observer, actually are a co-creator in the reality which you perceive. A lot of people misconstrue the evidence and say, the particles are being interfered by the mere act of thought. However, it's being misconstrued in a very mystical and metaphysical and esoteric way. However, let's look at thought in a more intermediary step platform series of events rather than merely looking at something and thinking really hard. Where does the thought in this experiment actually present itself? Well, the thought itself actually presents itself in the design of the machine and the experiment. So in essence, the thought which is affecting the outcome of the experiment is through the intelligence and the intellect which was manifest into action, which made the machine which was able to perform the experiment, which gives the results. Now, how people are actually misinterpreting this is it should be interpreted that this is in fact proof that you can create the reality in which you see. Well, I've heard the explanation that it's like trying to reach for a penny which is between two cushions. You reach for it and you push it away. Well, it is actually showing that you're pushing the penny, and the penny in this case is a photon of light, with your mind. But the fact of the matter is that it's being pushed with the device that was utilized by the mind and was created by the mind. So yes, you are using your mind, but a lot of people nearly negate the whole intermediate pathway of steps which was involved to create the machine which was initially used by the mind to create such a machine. So there you have it. That's how you can control photons with your mind, is by creating a machine which actually itself is able to emit photons of light. So yeah, of course you're going to be able to, affect photons and their movements, because the fact of the matter is that you've created a device which does just that. And the fact of the matter is that when you observe it, it's obviously going to have an effect on it because, again, you're using your mind. As soon as you initiate the pathway of steps to observe this in this instance which is occurring, then you actually have to take into consideration that your observation is also playing a direct role on the outcome of the experiment. Because the fact of the matter is, for you to observe, you have to interact. You can't just merely be an observer without having some part in the system itself. Whether it is your breath or whether it is that you merely turned on the lights to take a look. The mere act of you doing so, which was initiated by thought, and maybe very advanced thought at that matter, actually has a role and an effect on what it is that you're going to see and perceive, because all things have a domino effect on the reality which we see to be real.